Right, I hate to be negative about AEW because too many people are unfairly harsh on AEW a lot of the time, and quite frankly, over the last few months, I thought their product has improved drastically, outside of the Death Rider storyline, obviously. But last night's show, unfortunately, I literally have got nothing good to say about it. So without further ado, I'm Ben Allison, this is Allison Analysis, and here are my 5 key findings. In at number 5, more of Jon Moxley's close-ups should have been shown on TV. I understand AEW doesn't like to do long pre-recorded promo segments, and honestly, 99% of the time that is the right move. It is something that WWE do quite regularly, and some people like it, some people don't. So for the alternative, it probably is a smart move for them to not do it. But if there was one time to do one as a one-off, last night would have been it. People have been complaining so much about the Death Riders, and the close-up with Renee Paquette really explained it and really explained the motives behind them quite well. But the issue was, the part where they explained all of that is only on YouTube, and the people who are probably casual fans who are complaining about this probably aren't going to go over to YouTube to watch it. So last night, they should have just shown 10 minutes of the interview, honestly. 5 to 10 minutes, 5 minutes at the very least. Not just a minute or two like they did. I know it's something they don't usually like to do, but for a one-off, it would have worked. Have Moxley explain the Death Riders manifesto, what they want to do, how they want to change AEW. And then this storyline could have worked, because the fact is they need to do something to get fans engaged. And this interview did a great job, but it's behind YouTube. In at number 4, AEW's commentary team needs to do a better job at calling big moves. First things first, I do like AEW Dynamite's current commentary team. I do, and I think Excalibur does get a lot of hate at times, and unnecessary hate at times. But I don't think he's a play-by-play commentator. I think he's an analyst, and I think he's a phenomenal analyst, but again, not a play-by-play commentator, and that's the role he is currently in. Far too often, this commentary team's just having random conversations during big moments of matches, and it's been bugging me now for months and months and months, but last night was the worst example of it. Brian Cage did an F5 off the top rope, and the commentary team did not call the action. They acknowledged the rope break when Will Ospreay managed to get the rope break, but they didn't call the F5 off the top rope. They should have been jumping up and down. They should have been going nuts, but they didn't. And if the commentary team aren't invested in a match, then why should fans be? This is part of the bigger issue. In at number 3, more fans need to call out AEW for their treatment of the women's division. Over the past few days on social media, AEW have been getting a bunch of criticism about the fact that they haven't increased the amount of time they've given to women's wrestling since the company started in 2019. And their answer is the exact same answer they do every 6 months when something like this happens. They put whatever match is happening that week in the women's division in the main event slot, and next week, guess what they'll do? They'll move it right back to the start of the second hour, the same slot they normally give it to every single week. I love Mercedes Moné, and she gets so much unjustified hate, and that's a conversation for another day. I love Yuka Sakazaki. She's fantastic as well. And yes, this was a TBS championship match, but there was basically no story. It was random. The fans didn't care. The crowd was silent. Social media didn't understand why it was happening. And then matches which should main event a show, such as Julia Hart versus Jamie Hayter after the feud they have, get stuck in the middle of the card and given barely any time. The fact is, women's wrestling on NXT averaged nearly 50% in the last year, while on WWE's main roster it averaged between 35 and 50%, but AEW, it was strictly between 10 and 20%. And I think only one episode in the entire year exceeded that 20%. It is a complete joke. I mean, I feel sick of saying it at this point, but it's true. Pro wrestling is like a stock market. The more time you put into somebody, the more you get out of them. And AEW aren't giving the women's division enough time for enough characters to properly develop and for fans to properly care about them. It is a complete joke, and it frustrates me because when the company started, they said they were going to give women an equal chance and equal pay. For the pay thing, I have no idea what the contracts are like, but for the time, well, it's clearly nowhere near the case, and currently, out of all the major promotions, they are far behind. The only logical explanation right now is that AEW are trying to target incels or something like that, and I don't actually believe that for a second, but that is how it comes across. AEW Women's Division has so much talent. Give them more time, please, guys. But I do promise you guys, I am usually more positive than this. This is very unlike me to be this negative on an episode of Allison Analysis. But even still, if you guys could please like and comment, I really would appreciate it, and subscribe here as well. We do between 5 to 10 free videos every single week, and in addition to that, we also do a daily live stream at 8 p.m. UK, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 12 p.m. Pacific over in the United States. Thank you guys. In at number 2, the timing of Timeless Toni Storm's return felt rushed. Before I get into this, I do want to say I thought the Collision segment where Toni Storm revealed herself as still the Timeless One this past week was absolutely brilliant. I thought her performance was exceptional, but this entire storyline feels rushed. I mean, what was the entire point of Toni Storm doing this act? Surely it was to get in the head of Mariah May, and if that was the case, then why would you show your hand the first time you actually get in the ring with her with this gimmick? I would have either had it gone on for a bit longer, so started a little bit earlier, maybe have Toni Storm act like the student of Mariah May or something like that. Or I would have done the exact same thing, but kept Toni Storm in her old gimmick all the way to Australia. Then during the match in Australia, turn into the Timeless One. Do the exact same angle you did in Collision, but in the middle of the match. Would it be a bit too sports entertainment-esque? Of course it would. But would it also get in Mariah May's head and be a great moment? Yes. I truly do think it would work. Some people would complain, obviously, but I do think if I had the pen, that's how I would book it. Plus, it would protect Mariah May a lot if she then took the loss. And in at number 1, to summarize all of this, I personally was completely uninterested in last night's AEW Dynamite. Brian Cage versus Will Ospreay was fun, but as a character, I've not really been given a reason to care for Brian Cage in AEW. He just loses pretty much every singles match he is in. Plus, the commentary team not acknowledging the F5 off the top rope, that took me out of the match completely. I love AR Fox, but as a character, same as Brian Cage, I've been given no reason to care about him, so I just wasn't really invested into that match with Ricochet. Claudio versus Jeff Jarrett actually did its job fine. That was actually probably the most invested I was out of the entire show, which shocks me as I'm not a Jeff Jarrett fan. Jay White versus Wheeler Yuta was a fine match, but it went on way too long. I wasn't invested because I knew who was going to win. And it just didn't capture me at all. And I love Mercedes Moné, I love Yuka Sakazaki, but their match being the main event, I mean, there was just no story there, so I wasn't massively invested in that either. But I mean, I guess that was one of the positives. I hate complaining about AEW because the company gets way too much unjustified hate a lot of the time. But I am somebody who so easily gets invested into wrestling and loves it. And I didn't really get invested into anything last night. And if I can't get invested, then you might have an issue. But what did you guys think about AEW Dynamite last night? If you guys did enjoy it, if you think I'm all completely wrong, let me know in the comments down below, or if you agree, let me know as well. I will be back tomorrow for another video, but then I will be back on Saturday to talk to you guys about a little bit of Friday Night SmackDown. See you guys then. Peace!